Absolutely.
All right, Emilio, the stage is all yours. You will
Okay.
decide what happens for next 90 minutes. And a warm welcome from Applied Theatre India Foundation. And over to you.
Well, thank you. So before I start with the PowerPoint presentation, and my goals with that are just to tell you a little bit about my background, a little bit about myself, and also some of the influences on my own praxis, my own methodology, and the work that I do and the aesthetics that I try to create in the learning spaces of applied theater and in classroom spaces. Uh, and then also just tell you a little bit about what the methodology and the praxis and the curriculum is for my program here at IU Indianapolis, which is a very nascent program. It's very new. I'll share a little bit of context with that in the PowerPoint. But I would love to start out with just taking maybe, 10, 15 minutes to have everyone just kind of introduce himself in the space and just share maybe what is a question or something you're grappling with, or um, just a quick connection or a surprise, or it could be an aha, or just anything that you're kind of bringing into the space with you today that is connected to the ideas of maybe artistry, challenges of the work, something you're questioning for yourself, something that you hope to explore. Again, I'm leaving that purposefully very open-ended, but I will. I'll start with Dr. Sashin since I since I referred to you earlier, and then what I'll ask you to just make that quick comment, Dr. Sashin, and then call on someone else in the space to like continue until we're done. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Fantastic.
Okay. Hi, sir. My name is Dr. Sachin Mandle. I'm into teaching. I'm teaching into management colleges in Mumbai. I'm working as a visiting lecturer and I'm also into corporate training. And I'm also a theater artist.
Thank you, Dr. Sashin. Who'd you like to call on?
Dhananjay Kulkarni.
Hello, sir. Myself Dhananjay. I am marketing head and corporate certified corporate trainer of Posiment Consulting. We are into HR services and recording in progress. Hello. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay. So I am also a theater artist and a musician. Thank you.
Great.
Uh, KK.
Yes, good evening, Emilio, and good evening, everyone. My name is Koreman Katrak. You can just call me KK. And I am into the learning and development space since many, many years now. And since last year, 3 years into facilitation and experiential learning. And my majority of my work is with college students who are wanting to get employable, and they are generally in their final year of college. So as I speak just now, I am in a very small remote area of Maharashtra called Tasgaon, where I am currently doing a batch. And I love going to these tier 2, tier 3 cities within India because I believe that they also need to get that spark for of facilitation, and at the same time they also need to get some light into their own lives because currently the education system here is still pretty old fashioned, so wanting some new ideas to come to them so that they can be creative and at the same time they can take a leap in their lives. So I'm interested in this kind of work, so that is what I'm doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, KK. Who would you like to call on next?
I would like to call on Sonal.
Okay, before Sonal starts, what I would like to suggest is there are 32 members in the group. And so please respect the time. Please keep your introduction brief so we can have more listening from you.
Hello everyone and good evening. I'm Sonal here. I'm basically an experiential trainer working in the corporate sector and now trying to very effectively and trying to use a lot of applied theater in all my trainings. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. Who would you like to call on next?
Divya?
Hi, I'm Divya. I'm from Mumbai, and after 20 years of corporate experience, I'm now exploring since 5 years how to make equal revenues in applied theater. That's my challenge right now, and I am getting into corporate and business schools as my clientele now. I also practice psychodrama and playback theater. Thank you.
Nice,
I
thank you.
call on to Deepa.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deepa Raghavan, an ex-banker by profession, a theatre artist, an actor and writer in the theatre space, and that's what drew me towards applied theatre. I'm an applied theatre practitioner doing corporate training using applied theatre techniques. I only want to say that I hope applied theatre helps communities become authors rather than subjects in the future. I would like to call upon Shilpa.
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Shilpa Kurunkar. I am applied theatre practitioner. Uh, Anupama. Anupama is there? Ajay.
Hello everyone, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Anupama, and the question which Emilio raised about being in art and the elitism which artists carry. I am a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, and all the time got asked, "What are you doing with your art?" And as if I have to do something with it. Whereas my thoughts on that were like, I am living my art. So when I stumbled upon applied theater, it was beautiful for me because it broke that fourth wall where life became art, and like the lines that separate art and life just vanished. Yeah, thank you.
Who would you like to call on?
Yeah, Shivani.
Good evening, Emilio. Good evening, everybody. I am Shivani and I work with children. So, children and I make a pretty good team with all humility, must I say. And we work in the space of social emotional learning. And I'm intrigued by two things. One is that impact assessment through applied theater based intervention. And second is that in your background, there's a lovely chart and there are certain values, there's statements written that be affected. So, I would like to know as to how did you come up with it? So what's the story behind it? So yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I didn't write you a check to ask that question. That's amazing. I love that you're already like taking in a lot of this because I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation. So thank you, Shivani. Who would you like to call on?
Yes, it's Pam.
Hi everyone, I'm Pam. I am a curriculum designer currently based in Singapore, working in a learning and consulting firm. Thank you. Let me call Asit.
So hi all, hi Emilio. I am Osit and I am a L&D professional and also ICF accredited coach. Thanks. Now I want to call uh, Niranjan.
Hello, I am Niranjan, and I am learning theater in education, and writing television serials since 8 years. And today I am like, be aware, be open, be rigorous, be curious, be affected, be respectful, and be ready. I want to call Alifia, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alifia. I'm a communications and mental health coach, and I'm here exploring unconventional, unorthodox ways of doing transformational work. I'd like to call upon Papia.
Thanks, Alifia, and hello everyone. Hi, Emilio. I'm Papia, and I am heading learning and development for a US-based organization. I'm pretty much new to applied theater, but I have been practicing psychodrama for last 4 or 5 years now. And my question, and I'm still kind of experimenting with it, that how can we bring this kind of experiential learning to hardcore corporate people who are always there crunching numbers. So I'm still finding out that kind of balance over there. So yeah, thank you. And I will pass it on to Preeti.
Thanks, Papia. Hi, Emilio. Hi, all. I'm Preeti, a leadership skills facilitator and coach since 2 decades. Dabbled a little bit in acting. I don't have a question, but I'm a little bit like a kid in a candy store, pretty fascinated by applied theater and looking forward to a ton of things. Thank you. Calling upon Shilpa.
I did.
Okay, I can go. Sorry, I think Shilpa was done, Preeti. That's why.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead,
no
Shruti.
problem. Just to save time. Hi, I'm Shruti. I am an actor and an applied theater practitioner. I'm trying to learn ways in which we can apply theater in every bits that we do, every part of work that I do. Yeah, that's why I'm here. And passing it on to Ajay, or is he already done?
Hello everyone, myself Ajay Fondekar. I am from Goa. I am a theatre artist and currently I am a theatre art instructor in school. So I am calling Yogiraj.
Hello, I am Yogiraj Pandey. I am music teacher in school and I want to do something for children's. Thank you. Next call for Mayur.
Hello, just give me a second. I just joined. Sorry for the delay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Mayur. I'm based out of Pune. I am an IT professional and a passionate experimental theater artist. Thank you.
Would anyone like to pick up?
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
not sure. I see Preeti here, so I'm not sure if she's done already.
No.
Yeah, I'm done, Mayur.
Oh, okay.
Let me go in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Prajakta, and wonderful to meet all of you all. I come with a clean slate with no backgrounds in training or theater, but I'm looking forward to learn a lot of things. Yeah. I believe I have an analytical mind, and I'm looking to ignite that creativity in me. So that's all. I don't know who else is remaining.
I can go.
Kirti? Yeah, I think.
Mansi. I'm an applied theater diploma holder, and I've been doing playback theater since the last 8 years now. So I do specialize in playback theater, but I do want to try out the other forms of applied theater, like theater of the oppressed, as well as storytelling for more of community building as well as education. Thank you. Who's left can go.
Priyesh?
Yeah, hi, this is Priyesh. I'm a theater practitioner and also a facilitator in a school.
Great. Kirti?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kirti, and I'm a teacher educator. I teach B.Ed and M.Ed student, and I teach a paper called Drama and Art in Education to B.Ed students. Thank you.
Mrunal?
Yes. Hi everyone. My name is Mrinal, and I have done my master's in chemistry, and I was working with one of the well-known chemical laboratory based in Pune. And the theater is my passion since my childhood, and now I'm running an academy for children since 8 years, and I'm exploring theater and how it contributes in emotional intelligence of children and overall personality development. Thank you.
Manjusha?
Hi, I am Manjusha Bhaskarwar from Pune. I am working in corporates as a posh trainer. I use Forum Theatre in Applied Theatre, and I'm using mostly I work in Applied Theatre in education, in career counseling, also in relationship counseling. Thank you.
Sanjivani?
Good morning, Emilio, and good evening, the rest of you. I belong to India. I'm presently in Michigan, and I am an educationist, personal safety and life skill trainer, and an applied theatre practitioner. And I realized that when I was an educationist, there used to be theatre in the class always. So theatre and education were discovered then, and I am very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Nuradha?
Hi, I'm Anuradha Agarkar, right now joining in from Dubai. I'm a school teacher by profession and very excited to join in this course and learn so much from all my fellow classmates and coach and also the guests like you, Emilio. So thank you so much.
Okay. I think all done.
Is that everyone, Vaishali? Thank you so much for keeping track of everyone and making sure that
Okay,
everyone.
I think Vaishal is still left.
Okay, so hi, I'm Vaishali. I'm head academics and outreach program ATI Foundation, and also I am a artist acting in experiential theater. Yes, and I am a applied theater practitioner, working with children, teachers, and student teachers, and uh, senior citizens, and also I am working with de-addiction center patients. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So again, I cannot thank you all enough for giving me your attention, your care, and your open hearts and minds, and just allowing me to share a little bit of my experience and my story with you in hopes that you have connections, questions about the nature of this work, and I'll share the specific lens from which I approach the work. But I also just want to take a moment again for us to recognize just the value, even in what I call the Zoomiverse, right? In this cyberspace of taking that time. Yes, I know that was 15, 20 minutes, right? But it's important for us to know who's in the space and get connection and know that we are here as a living entity with energy, with experience, with value, with cultural and capital and experience that we bring to the work, right? And so even taking that moment of connection, so thinking about what that means for us in the cyberspace, but just reiterating to us as practitioners, whether we're working in schools or hospitals or corporate classrooms or in the street, right? What that means and how much more important that is in the real space, right? In the personal, to take that time to have check-in with our learners. Where are we at today? What's happening? Even if it's just eye contact, even if it's just a common breath together, whatever it is, to sort of bring the ensemble together and unify as one. So I'm going to take a moment here to share my screen and get rid of all the extras. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation of my PowerPoint here. So again, thank you so much for taking the space and the time here to let me share my work. And as Vaishali introduced to you, my name is Emilio Di Robles. I'm an assistant professor of applied theater at Indiana University, Indianapolis. We have several branches of Indiana University here in the state of Indiana. Indianapolis is the urban campus that's centered in the capital of the state, Indianapolis, although the main campus is in Bloomington, which is about an hour away, southeast-ish of here. So, many of you have already brought a lot of experience to the work in terms of what definitions of applied theater is, what it looks like, what it means. I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of like where I kind of come from things, which is, much more of, I would say, a non-academic space with applied theater practitioner, being a practitioner, in the sense that when I did not earn a degree, quote unquote, in applied theater, and I have never studied it through a scholarly lens so much, right? I have approached the work through the lens of teaching artistry, an arts integrationist, and a person who has sought to use my artistry of theater making as a way to connect to other disciplines and make learning much more engaging and relevant to any number of publics, right? But as we can probably talk a little bit about, that applied theater encompasses a wide range of praxis, right? And we can all hopefully agree on the fact that uh, one of the main goals of applied theater is to intentionally provoke or shape some kind of social change, right? Whether that be a whole group, whether that be individual change to then affect a group, but that is the goal, right? Having some kind of impact with the nature of the work that we do. Thinking about applied theater as being utilizing all the gifts of theater making, right? So in my own work, I like to say that, that's collaboration, that could be drama, that could be narrative, that could be storytelling, that could be any number of performance-based techniques, whether that be mask work or physicality, or as some of our people on the call have mentioned, dance, music, any kind of performance space in a non-traditional context, in a setting, in a space, right? And talking about the audience of publics that we serve, like, well, traditionally, what makes applied theater more distinct is we are generally breaking down the wall of traditional audience, right? That's usually set up by more traditional structures of a theater space, and thinking about that it applies to anyone and for everyone. However, right, usually in the work that we are doing, we're trying to usually activate it with the marginalized, underserved, and maybe underrepresented, right? And even though some of you might be thinking, well, Emilio, I work in corporate spaces and like those people are not marginalized and they're not, they're the ones calling the shots and making the decisions, right? However, I would say, well, but is that a traditional space where we think of theater happening, right? Or we could even say, well, is a corporate group of publics, is that I would say, well, they're actually underserved. Why? Because they're not thinking about theater, using theater in connection for what they do, right? And one of the things that I just like to say is applied theater. Again, this is coming from a very non-academic lens. This is coming from me, but I just say, hey, applied theater is theater that has a job to do, everyone. What you define that job to be is, filtered and informed by the nature of who you are, what you bring, the publics that you work with, and what that you think the job is, right? But it's not theater for its own sake, per se, right? Certainly there can be aesthetics involved in beauty and entertainment value and escapism. Of course, we like to honor all those things, but we're hoping that we are activating it and charging it with the theater with something more than it being the reason that it exists. Okay. So Kasub asked me to talk a little bit about, and I tried to do this a little bit organically, like that, he was interested in having me share just a little bit about what are some activations of applied theater that are common in the United States. And as I kind of talk about this, I'll be very, very brief, right? But I want to share that even as I talk about most common, I say that very cautiously because applied theater praxis in the United States is still very, I say we're easily 30 years behind you in India, and certainly on the other side of the pond meaning UK and Europe, right? Where this work has been codified, it's been given official programs and master's degrees and PhD degrees. Of course, we're catching up on that end in academia, but we're still very much behind in that. So when I say most common, kind of just put that in quotes a little bit, right? But we have forms of disability theater. So again, using theater with populations that have physical, mental impairments, disabilities, special needs. I would not count theater for the hearing impaired or the ASL in that, but that would actually probably be a whole other different category. But certainly theater that's used to storytell and put those artists center stage and their experiences, someone would say would be adjacent to that. Theater for development, which I think is much more common in other areas of the world necessarily than it is here in the United States. I think it's something that needs to be utilized and activated much more in the States. But some of you might be able to see some of this imagery, but I chose this little picture here that says when everyone couldn't read, right, theater could still teach. So thinking about some of the work that we might do in different types of populations that, whether it be because of educational access or a geographical isolation or poverty or any number of things, right? How we use theater as a way to develop individuals closely tied to educational aims. Theater and education. And again, many of you, one individual I remember talking about that they worked in the classroom. So here in the United States, I'd say that's probably the most common use of theater in tying theater and applied theater practice in educational classrooms and spaces. Sometimes that is work towards the development of artists, right? And formal educational training in theater. More often than not, that's really kind of tied to what we call arts integration, where we use theater, whether it's or any kind of art, really, dance, visual art, performing art, written literature, poetry, music, as a way to be integrated into other disciplines, math, science, English, right, physics, any number of things to strengthen and activate those connections for learners, right? Memory theater. So this is something that's also beginning to become a little bit more developed here in the States, right? And using theater as a way to help individuals that have Alzheimer's, onset dementia, working with people that are elders is a way for them to stay in the moment, honor their experiences. Sometimes if they're losing their memory, as a way to embody that and get their stories out so they can carry and live on and pass on those legacies a lot of different ways. Museum theater, which I have a imagery that's showcased here. This is actually one of the most common, I would say, forms of applied theater here in the States, where theater and theater practices are used to reenact historical times, right? Or an actor interpreter might walk around in a museum as a character from a particular time period, right? And interact with the people that are attending the museum as that character, right? Not in present day, ask questions. Sometimes this might be a little bit more formalized, right? There might actually be a theater space with a performance, right, that the audience goes to. But again, that's just another more common use of applied theater practice here in the States. Prison theater. So again, a lot of use of theater in rehabilitation in prisons. If you're not familiar with a film that recently came out that won several accolades last year, but it's called Sing Sing. I highly recommend you take a look at that on any streaming platform or whatever that you might be able to see it. It is based upon a real theater ensemble in the high security prison of Sing Sing in New York, and gives insights to their work and how that work has been transformational. Again, there's also a spectrum of prison theater, I think, that exists actually outside of the carceral space. So what I mean by that is using the theater for former offenders and inmates once they've been released to help integrate them back in society once they're out, right? But prison theater normally is working for incarcerated populations that are, still serving their time in prison or in jails. We have youth theater. Again, that is such a large spectrum. We're talking theater for young audiences. We're talking types of theater that are where young adult literature, novels, etc., are adapted for the stage, performed in regional theaters across the states or community theaters as a way to engage youth. A lot of that, I would say, youth theater can also involve like camps or special workshops. Again, healthcare in theater, which I know is very prevalent and not so uncommon in India, but all the different ways in which theater can be activated through, for those of you that are familiar with Augusto Boal and Forum Theater or playback theater, right, to improve outcomes for standardized patient care, to role play in the role of patient and doctor, or also just to bring stories of individuals and illnesses and diagnoses and journeys to health and wellness to light. But certainly, theater and healthcare, or even just health education initiatives, right? Having ensembles go to schools to talk about, let's say, oral hygiene or bullying or mental wellness, those kinds of things that could be connected to healthcare. Theater of the Oppressed, which many of you have referenced with Augusto Boal, which uses forum theater, and we could do a whole session on that, so I'm not going to go too deep on that. Drama therapy. Some of you, I believe, have talked a little bit about drama therapy and using theater to role play, right? People making choices for their psychological wellness to act their way towards successful behaviors, right? With families, with relationships, with self, to go back and investigate memories or traumatic experiences that they've had to help reflect on those things, process things. Something that several of you are already working in this space, right? Theater and professional development, and whether that's business, marketing, leadership, team building. Here in the United States, that tends to, I think, have a bias towards improvisation, but certainly that's not the only way that theater is activated here in the States with those particular populations, but really thinking about team building. And then mock trials in court systems, right? So theater is also heavily activated here as lawyers and future litigants or even witnesses, and the whole process of getting them to make arguments, go before fake juries, mock juries, just to learn about presentation skills and incorporating all of those things, right? So that's just a small taste of the way theater is activated here in the States. Okay. I'm just going to take a little pause for a moment. Is there any questions about anything here in particular that you'd like a little bit more clarity on, or what you see, or maybe something that I didn't, bring out too clearly, or you have any questions about any of these in terms of why I say that they're the most common in the States or how they're used? Okay. Are we good if we can keep going? Oh, yes, I see a hand. Shivani?
So, Emilio, I would just like you to sort of elaborate more on a bias to improvisation that you were just talking about. I want to understand that point again.
Yes. So, in a lot of corporate settings, and again, there are theater companies that do trainings, right? That they found a way that they are able to be profitable and financially lucrative is for them to maybe go into a corporate setting and do any number of theater-based techniques or theater games, right? To CEOs, to new employees, to ways of creating a corporate culture, or having them dialogue about how to resolve conflict, right, with clients, or within or HR issues, right? So those would be different ways in which theater is activated in this space. And in improvisation, for example, I'll just anecdotally talk about this. And perhaps some of you have already heard about this, but in theater improv, there is a value called yes and that is very important, right? And essentially, what that value is in improvisation is that if you and I or two people are working as partners in a scene, and this is very applicable to everyone's work that you're doing, right? Is if I put out an idea, and I'm just looking at Shivani right now. So, Shivani, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just saying if Shivani and I were in a scene together and I say, oh, what a beautiful day, right? And Shivani was my scene partner, and it's like, it's not a beautiful day. It's raining outside. I hate this weather. All of a sudden, as partners, we're in conflict. And that's kind of shutting down an idea that someone else has put up versus like building upon things together. Yes, right. So, but if Shivani said, yes, it is beautiful. And oh my gosh, look, I just got an alert though. It looks like there's a storm that's coming in the next hour, right? That is building upon my idea. And yes, introduces a new idea of like, it's beautiful now, but it looks like there might be some bad weather coming a little bit later, right? So, the idea behind that is that when we say yes and we can build on and there's more possibilities, right? Than if we start shutting things down and saying no. Is that helpful? Is that anecdote useful there? Okay,
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
of course. And great question. And by the way, anyone at any point, I've intentionally built in a couple of pauses here to just sort of, let's recollect and reflect along the way. But yes.
I had a question. In the previous
Yes.
slide, I saw memory theater.
Yes.
Never heard that term before. I don't know what is it. If you can just say in brief, what is it?
Yes. So memory theater, and again, depending on where you ask and who you ask, because there's different terms that might be utilized for it. So I've heard memory theater more than other terms, which is why I used it. But memory theater is literally using theater with specifically with aged populations that are experiencing some kind of decline in their mental capacity and their memory, right? So whether it is dementia, whether it is Alzheimer's, right, or Lewy body dementia, right? So oddly enough, there is a strong movement to use improvisation with these groups as well, right? Now, the rationale, and again, I'm giving you all this in very simple chunks just because I could go so deep into all these things, right? But the rationale in using improvisation with the aged that are experiencing memory loss is that for improvisation is all about being in the moment. And people that experience significant memory loss, they are literally living in the moment, right? They may not recall what they said, 5 minutes ago or so it's how do we maximize on that and how do we honor that spirit of playfulness, of joy, right? And also allow that to create pathways for connection with others as opposed to being isolated and closed through that sense of play, right? Okay. I see another hand up. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
May I, Emilio?
Yes, of course.
In that last slide, you were talking about drama therapy. So, can you explain it in brief? What it is actually and
Yes.
how it is
I'm sorry.
used?
Of course. So drama therapy is first of all, this is I mean, all of these things have their sub categorizations and their specialties of like merging different worlds and different types of acumen together. Drama therapy is using theater technique, right? Hopefully with practitioners or with clinicians or behavioral therapists or counselors who are equally equipped, right, with theater background and of course counseling, or they're working with in teams, right, where there's multiple individuals that arts practitioners, but then expert doctors and clinicians using drama as a way to address behavioral issues, behavioral concerns, or for example, let's say if something happened to me and I'm trying to think about how to confront some type of behavior with my parents, right? As an adult, right? Whether it is that my parents are controlling or that they are talk negatively towards me, whatever in our interactions, or maybe there's always just a whole lot of conflict, right? I might be in a space where a clinician, a therapist, a counselor might role play with me or other actors. Okay, what are some things that your father or your mother says to you? And they would role play as my mother or my father. And then I would try and act out or get me as a way to embody first, rehearse. How might I act in that situation? How might I respond? How am I let me check in with my body, what's happening to me, right? um what I might be able to say to literally like rehearse a script of things that I could say to keep my own safety, my own boundaries, my wellness, etc., right? That's just like a very small example of how drama therapy can be utilized, but it certainly can go much more deeper than that. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Okay. I don't think I see any other hands up, so I'm going to continue on. Oh, yes, one more. Shilpa, please.
Thank you. In the previous slide, you mentioned that disability therapy, disability theater. So
Yes.
please, can you explain it?
Yes. So disability theater has a couple of different subcategories within itself, but essentially it is theater where either teaching artists are working with individuals that have any number of special needs or disabilities, whether that be physical, for example, they have mobility issues, they might be need to use walkers, or they might be in wheelchairs, or perhaps they can't walk or they have braces. It might be other kinds of disabilities, right? Like, for example, people that have cerebral palsy, or I mentioned as well, like I would actually put this in a separate category, but some people connect theater of the deaf and the non-hearing is also part of the work of disability theater, right? That could look like people in the deaf community telling their stories using sign language and the vocabulary of theater storytelling by putting them on stage, or advocacy, or it just might be using them in casting them in non-traditional ways, right? Or using I even have I'll just talk a little bit about a student of mine who graduated last year. She was invested in using like how to use theatrical techniques and practice to get students who are learning sign language for the deaf to be much more fluent and comfortable in their embodiment of sign language, right? So I would even say that that would be included in that spectrum. And then also too, like we could also include people with, mental disabilities or special needs, or developmental special needs, people that have Down syndrome, people that are on the spectrum with autism, right? So I would even say that could be its own separate category. That could also be kind of like an umbrella term connected to people with disabilities, working with those populations. Does that work?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, of course. These are phenomenal questions. I'm so glad that you have so much curiosity and thinking about different connections. All right. So now I'm just going to go briefly and talk a little bit about myself and my background. And so I'll be like, very brief on, but basically I'm a seasoned veteran artist educator. I've got 30 plus years of experience. Previous roles, these are just some. I've been a Spanish teacher, I've been an actor, a director, an instructional coach in schools, helping teachers maximize on how they are in the classroom, whether it's their voice, whether it's their body, whether it is curriculum design or disciplinary management or spaces. Also, I've designed curriculum in a lot of different ways for different schools, not just theater based, but with foreign language, with English, with arts integration. I've directed camps. I've been a teaching artist and an administrator on the leadership side of things. So finding money, hiring people, the big meetings, making the decisions for different types of arts initiatives and programming to happen as well. Particular areas of interest of mine, aesthetic education, which I'll talk a little bit about later, the integration of arts to different disciplines that we may not be traditionally think of. So, for example, how can we use theater to make the learning of math more engaging, or science, or history, or literacy, right? Any number of those things. What I call bilingual and bicultural education. So, even though I'm American, I'm 100% in terms of background Mexican. So I'm first generation U.S. citizen. So I'm fluent in Spanish, and I also happen to be fluent in French. So I also like to bring that acumen of foreign language learning and using that to role play, and how do we use theater to engage people in those spaces and make language learning much more of an embodied process rather than a learning vocabulary and those kinds of things. Theater of the oppressed, theater for social change. I'm a huge proponent of devised work. So if you haven't heard of devised work before, it's essentially what it sounds like. It's creating a theater piece from scratch with a group of learners. Sometimes I like to explore questions or themes or ideas or relationships. Again, that could be a whole lecture in and of itself in terms of how to create new works with people that may not identify as artists necessarily, or with professional artists. Theater of the oppressed, verbatim theater. And so I just thought what I'd share here at the bottom is just a little bit about my department and my positionality. So first of all, when it comes to the theater department, you see this? I am an army of one, so I am essentially the whole entire department. At times when I'm fortunate enough, I have, yeah, Niranjan is laughing, I think you can see. So sometimes I have other individuals who are able to support me by teaching other classes, but essentially I teach 80% of all the courses and coursework in the theater department. That ranges from introduction to theater, introduction to acting, creative dramatics, fundamentals of applied theater, which is a new course that I developed, which I'll talk about in a couple moments here. I even teach public speaking, courses for independent study. Again, a lot of different things. As it says here, I'm a one-person show with, minimal support. I've been here at the school now this is my 8th academic year. I started as a visiting lecturer in the fall of 2019. So as you all know, the fall of 2019 was a wonderful time to start anything brand new because of what happened exactly, right? This of spring. Great time to start something new, fall of 2020. So and then here at the university, I switched to a tenure track in the fall of 22. So that just gives you a little bit of just, my background and who I am. As far as like people that I find to be influential, I won't go into too much about who these people are. Rather, I hope maybe like screenshot and we can talk about this later because I'm hoping that this is uh, a conversation that we will, be continuing on as cohorts. But Maxine Green, Augusto Boal, Michael Rode, Eric Booth, Bertold Brecht, Jerzy Grotowski. These are all, whether they be educational practitioners, artists, philosophers, um, people whose aesthetics and activations of theater I admire. I also mentioned down here at the very bottom Looking Glass Theater and Steppenwolf Theater. So prior to arriving to the academic space, I was an actor, director, teaching artist, et cetera, for well over 15 years in Chicago. And these two theater companies in particular were spaces where I felt that my work flourished. It was honored. I was able to expand the program offerings, the initiatives, the ways in which we engaged authentically with different communities and publics, whether that be teachers, whether that be immigrants, whether that be the disabled, right? Whether it be people that were facing different types of economic challenges or geographical difference within the large city of Chicago. So that's why I put those two organizations there as being influencers. Okay. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about next is just with a quick overview of some of the challenges that shapes and some of the also influences of work and books that I'm using in the classroom. And by the way, Kostab, I wanted to share with you that I'll be more than happy to share this PowerPoint with you all as a resource for you to be able to capture some of these names, some of these texts that you might want to, read on your own. I'll be more than happy to do that. It's just so you can, go down your own curiosities and learning paths. And these might be some things that you all can speak to. And by the way, I'm looking at the time. I want to be respectful. Wherever we are, we're going to stop in like 5 minutes because I just want to open up and just entertain questions and curiosities, right? But some of the challenges that I faced in developing the program here are bias and ignorance. So what is applied theater? What does that even mean? How do we prioritize that? So if I were to make that a little bit more of a concrete, what does that mean, Emilio, right? So even my colleagues that are here in my department, as recently as 2 years ago, I was still getting asked the question, oh, well, when are we going to put on a musical, Emilio? And I'm like, you really don't understand what the goals of applied theater are, do you? Even after 6 years here, the goal is not for us to be putting on, musicals that are on Broadway, right? That we're trying to, that's what it's about. Like, no, we're trying to bring theater out into community spaces. We're trying to train individuals to be able to go out and facilitate and be artists and activate their artistry in communities, not to put on shows with big budgets and lights and costumes and those kinds of things, right? So that's what I'm talking about in terms of just educating a whole, not just people in my department, but just the school of what this even means and what this even looks like. And what's supporting a program in applied theater, what's needed in a curriculum, what's needed in spaces, in engagement with community partners, etc. So another large thing that's in my campus is just fostering what I call an artist identity. So my campus here, I like to say that the School of Medicine and the School of Law, along with maybe one other entity that I won't mention right now, is the tail that wags the dog. So instead of the dog doing the tail wagging, no, those are the two parts of campus that are like ooh, we don't touch you. You own everything. You have all the money, all the funding, all the resources, all the cachet. So, so what do I mean by that, everyone? I mean that for a lot of students, they're not coming here to this campus to be artists because they're not even thinking about that. Or there's not yet a culture here on this campus of artistry, which is sad because we are an urban university that is so rich in so many other ways where the arts flourish and etc. You would think that like this would be the natural draw for people to come to the capital of of Indianapolis, the state of Indiana, to come to an arts rich environment. So even having people think like artists in any number of classroom spaces is a huge cultural shift, right? This idea of introducing art, what I call entrepreneurship as activism and a sustainable career model, right? So I would imagine that many of you are in your own work right now as you've either broken out of corporate spaces or broken out of maybe working in the traditional educational field or trying to find these kind of in-between niches where you're doing your work maybe under the radar with support, without support, right? But it is a huge mind shift for artists in training to be able to see that like you can do this work and you can create a career out of this work. And if you are an artist, you don't have to be a barista at a coffee shop, right? To do that job while you're waiting to make a play, perform, get a gig, do a movie, whatever it is, right? That you can use your art right now in a way that is constantly engaging, that a way that affects others, that a way that hopefully nurtures you as well as an artist, so that you are constantly working in your art in some kind of way. But that's a huge shift. People don't think about that, right? So thinking about new curriculum and the classes that need to be offered and thinking about the initiating and stewardship of community partnership. And then I mentioned these texts too because these are texts that have been important to me, but also that again, I'm bringing these to students that have not had exposure before in any kind of way to these individuals or ways of thinking and doing things. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is, again, we have about 20 minutes because I want to just pause and I'm going to like go off the PowerPoint for right now. And let me stop the share because I want to actually take some time to, let's talk questions based upon what you have seen already. A lot of and I don't want to make you feel like I've cheated or missed anything big, right? But what some of the other things that I've just talked about in the PowerPoint were, some of the partnerships I have with the community right now with institutions, and basically just talking about some of the challenges in the work right now. So that just gives you like what I paused. But again, I really want to utilize time here with questions, with curiosities, what you would like to know, because I want this to be as much about dialogue as anything. Costa.
So I would like to know because we had a lot of conversation, and I'm really interested back because there are multiple areas that people work in when it comes to US, Europe, and UK. But my question is how you make it accessible for all. That's my question.
So can I ask you a little bit? So by accessible for all, are we talking about the communities that we work with? Are we talking about like artists to be able to be access the work? Like who would you like me to lead with in terms of who you mean by all? Who is all?
I'm talking about a society in general. Because what we have discussed a few days back that even a lot of people they're not aware about this terminology, even the concept, right? So On that front, awareness is one part, education is the second one, and then the benefits come to, those who participate. But then how the first part, the awareness part, like how people get to know about there is something like applied theater, like what kind of community projects that happens, which where only artists or educators are not involved, but the society who is not aware about applied theater is
Yeah.
equally involved.
Yeah. So I could spend the next 20 minutes on answering that question. But I'm not though. I'm going to just talk a little bit of a small gateway about something that came from a conversation that I had with some colleagues this summer that might be a way to have us start thinking about that, right? So I invite you as budding practitioners, seasoned practitioners, and into your communities, right? That even when we use the word theater, that's dangerous. That can be dangerous. And what I mean by that is for people that already have preconceived notions of what theater is, what it isn't, what it should look like, what's good and bad, right? So I invite us, maybe as practitioners, we should think maybe about where do we use that context and when does it when we use that word, and when is it helpful, when does it open up a pathway versus when does it put up a wall. So if I walk into a space where I think theater is going to be a word that's going to put up a wall, oh no, am I going to get up, do I have to stand up, do I do this thing, versus like, or even the word, like for example, the word game versus exercise in a space, right? So for me, you have to decide again. And so what I'm trying to talk about, this is so, oh my gosh, I'm getting so excited about what you just said, because I'm just thinking about the pathway of like language as accessibility, right? So why am I fixating on that right now, everyone? Because language is something that we can control as practitioners. The language that we use, that as we dialogue, as we storytell about our work with our communities, as we talk to others about language. So I would invite us to all have an awareness of translanguaging, translating what's the verbiage that we use that might put up walls versus that might open up pathways. So is applied theater a term that we need to use with everyone, or with someone who may not respond to that right away? Do we want to wait till we slip that in and say, well, actually, what we've done here, you didn't know that, but this is actually called applied theater. And now you've had this experience that you've done, or now you've tried this thing out, and now I can slip this and ease this to you, and it might land a little bit better, right? And I'll do one more quick thing with language, and then I see some other hands up, right? So going back to this idea of exercise versus game. When I'm in a space, depending on I like to err on the side of exercise. Now, why is that for me? Sometimes I think with game, some people might respond, "Oh, it's fun. It's like I can kind of dismiss it," right? You have to know who you're working with. For me, exercise might say like, okay, we're going to do this exercise, and it might invite us to maybe know that like we have to activate our brains as well, and it's not just about having fun, right? At the same time, you might be like, well, actually, no, Emilio, like I think with this particular group that I'm working with, exercise might come off a little bit too academic. It might turn some people off, and I actually want to use the word game because great. But what I'm having you think about is choice and activation in what you say. And the last thing that I'll talk about with vocabulary is, as accessibility, is we need to storytell. We need to storytell about our work and what that is, and be able to be expert translanguagers and translators of who the publics are, what will land, the words that we'll use, the examples that we'll use. So I will say, going back to your question, Kostab, is that is a first step, an integral step to creating accessibility, right? See
Deepa?
another hand. Deepa, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emilio, for taking us through the amount of work you have done. So, in the slide where you were talking about your work and the practices you do, there was a term called verbatim theater. If you could just throw some light onto what that is.
Verbatim theater, yes.
Yeah.
So verbatim theater, and there's a couple different terminologies with that. I just chose verbatim just because that's the one that I've been exposed to that's more common. But verbatim theater is, and some people also call it like ethnography. Again, it's so many different terms. But verbatim theater is literally where it's based on interviewing of subjects, right? And storytelling. With the goal being that the storytellers or the artist or the um the ensemble is using word for word verbatim what someone said as the dialogue. More often than not, verbatim theater exists in the realm of more monologue type presentations rather than dialogue exchanges back and forth, right? And I would just say that based upon the fact that in a monologue, it's much easier to say what someone said word for word because it's just the one person speaking about what they said versus like, if one of you said, "Well, I'm going to tell you word for word what the exchange was back and forth between two or three people," right? That's probably going to get lost as opposed to one person, one narrator, what they said, recording. But that's essentially what verbatim theater is, playing that back, right? Word for word. Yes. Great question.
Sorry, and TYA was also mentioned. Was it theater for young audience? The same thing like the youth theater you mentioned in the earlier
Yes.
slide?
Yes. TYA and youth theater here in the United States are very interchangeable. So they essentially mean the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And youth theater and TYA, again, there's a lot of intersectionality with a lot of these terms because many people would say like, well, theater for young audiences and youth theater is the same thing as theater and education. There is crossover for sure, yet there are some distinctions. So, yeah. Other questions, confusions, yes, curiosities, Shivani.
So Emilio, the other day, we as a team, we were pondering over our own interpretations of what applied theater is, right?
Hmm.
And that's when we were discussing about Freire as well and the critical consciousness. And then I read a bit about Thespis also. So again, please let me know if I'm thinking in the right direction.
Yeah.
That can I say that applied theater kind of nudges a Thespis in me whenever I'm engaging through this medium? Am I making sense to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, this is just like one part of um and I'm trying to remember too, Shivani, if you were the individual who said this or someone else in the space, which talked, and I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of um that people are telling their own stories. They're not like the subject of someone else's authorship, but like they become their own authors. Somebody said something like that at the very beginning. Um, so I think that that's the ultimate goal of the work, right? Is that ultimately you are it's not just who you're working with, why you are working with them in the first place, and the where, but it is about using these techniques to ultimately, I hate to use the word empower, but for lack of another term, uplift. right? And I have a little anecdotal connection to that in terms of distinctions. And I love that I have some more hands up. So I have a colleague here on this campus who's in a totally other school, who's getting a lot of money for using theater to talk about so well-being, wellness, health, etc. Right? And I have been indirectly encouraged by leadership in my school. Why don't you go collaborate with that person? And like, ooh. Now I've tried to reach out to them. They've kind of put up some walls, okay, which is fine with me. Where I'm going to make this connection is that for me, her work and my work are very distinct in terms of process and goals. For her, her work is about, yes, there'll be an artistic team. We go work with the community. We interview them. We do this. But then we come in with professional artists and playwrights to then turn what we've generated with this group into a play and then use that front facing to educate, to talk about, to open dialogue, to blah, blah, blah. I am not against that 100%, right? However, her work and what I hope my work, how it diverges is in my work, I would hope that some of those individuals who were involved in that process are also in charge of being the storytellers, are also on stage, or that my role is to help give them, here are some tools you can use in the world of theater. What's the story that you want to tell? I might help you shape it based upon aesthetics or understanding of what I think might be good, but I'm not going to take your content and then somehow change it through the filter of expert or professional, right? So I hope that makes a little bit of a distinction there in just terms of process and also addressing your question, right? In terms of the thespis and how that, what I'm hoping my process helps people become their own thespis as opposed to say like, no, thespis looks like this. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do with it. Okay.
Cool.
I
Great.
see.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and DK is hand up as well. Yes. So whoever would like to speak.
Yeah.
You.
Hi, Emilio. So this is just a thought. I don't know how to put this as a question. This is a confusion which is going on in my mind. You said confusions are open. I just would like to hear your thought on this. So my background is I'm an actor and I'm also applied theater practitioner at the same time, and I've had a corporate background, and I'm intentionally in the space of applied theater. Now, from coming from a corporate perspective, I really want to have like a profession where I make good money, right, for myself. And a lot of us here, one of them spoke to that, I'm trying to see how can I price my, projects and or the workshops that I offer because it adds value. I know the value that I bring into table, right? And I hear another perspective from my friends, theater friends. The perspective is that if we are coming from a theater background and if we kind of go and say applied theater is going to if we're going to charge more from people are going to, so here, when I say applied theater or we are doing theater at a corporate or a school or college, they think it's just street theater, unless we explain to them what it is. So the amount that they pay us is lesser than what we expected, the value that we bring on. And some people are just doing with that sort of level and then accepting whatever the people give them, thinking that if we kind of increase our pricing, people should not stop using theater as a medium thinking that it is expensive, so that will harm the applied theater and the theater society as whole. That is one perspective. while the other perspective is that we are trying to also build our careers. And while you were also talking about, the favorite line from your PPT for me was that when you're trying to become something, use what you have to work with it rather than just sitting with it or being in barista, right? I mean, that's the thing that you use. I think that's a powerful thing. That's, I think, the favorite line. So now these are the two perspectives. I'm kind of confused whenever I'm offering something. I don't know if this makes sense or if it is a question. This is a confusion. I'm just putting it across to you to see, is this how it works in your area as
So
well?
that is wow, what a compelling confusion and life crisis, in a good way. And what I find compelling about Shruti, what you just mentioned, is the fact that here we are. I'm saying we as a community, but of course, I'm saying specific to your community and just kind of this challenge that you're all kind of trying to navigate through together, all being on the team of being advocates for the work. Yet it's like going back to this idea that Kaustubh said about accessibility, like, well, we want to keep it on the cheap so that there's a pathway there, and knowing that theater is something that's innate to all of us. But at the same time, how do I honor the fact that this is skill, this is acumen, this is knowledge, this is knowing how to create a space, this is pedagogical excellence, this is what I here's something else I'll say connected to this too. This is a vocation. This is a calling, folks. And even though I might get a little bit of pushback from the people in the space, if anyone is doing this just as their job, I don't know if this is really where you should be, because this is a calling, this work, this merging of artistry and education together. There is not one that should be weaker or that should be like they need to work in tandem together and service all the time for the benefit of the work, for the benefit of your learners, the community, the outcome, etc. So I don't know if I have there's really no answer for you. As much as I would encourage you all to be in community with one another, to be like, know why you are charging what you're charging or why you're doing it. And as long as you are all in support of each other, and it's hard because again, you're trying to all get to the same place, right? But then you're not trying to have someone undervalue or have this become a game where the lowest bidder wins, right? Wow, this is so much to think on. Like, thank you for bringing that up. I wish I could give you some clear, like, this is the way to go. But I would say that here on the state side, right, that this is not an uncommon, although it's embodied in different ways, it's not an uncommon thing for many individuals who are starting off in the work to not know how much do I charge? What if I don't have a degree? What if I do this? Like, um, how do I know that I'm not underselling my value or charging too much or too little? These are complex questions, and that could be a whole other seminar. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to barge in, Emilio, on what Shruti has said. So I think what you said is absolutely correct. But what I feel, we are a part of the process, right? We should not look at that we are different and process is different. So finding the answer is the answer of what Shruti had said, right? In search of answers, always, every time, right? And that doesn't mean you will find the right answer, okay? But you might get multiple answers to it. But you always be in that space of searching is, I think, being a part of the process. And that will give you a ultimate joy of being in the process, right? Uh, all right, so that's my perspective on it. And I just barged in to remind everyone that we have already crossed the time. So what we can do is we can take just one last question by Dhananjay and then wrap it up.
Yeah. As I introduced myself, I'm a corporate trainer and a theater artist. So after hearing about applied theater and all that, after knowing all that, I got attracted to that to bring some change in my corporate training culture. But after entering the field, because of Kaustuv, we are meeting so many people like you who are working in diversified area with applied theater or techniques. And sometimes I get confused, actually which area I should get entered in. So how to take a decision or how to decide which area should we get in?
And so by area, do you mean like where to activate your praxis or how to use it or what community to work with? Or is that what you mean? Sort of like what area?
No, no, like you just now showed in your PPT, there are so many areas where we can apply applied theater. So
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
as you said, I also like explore new things. But at some point of moment, I get confused where to enter or
Mhm.
what to explore. So
Yeah.
how to take a decision? Already I am working in corporate training and all that. I'm using applied theater in that.
There are so many ways that we can our decisions can be informed with that. I mean, uh, who are you the most excited about working with, right? So for some of you, it's probably like, I want to work with children. That's it. I know that is I can work with others, but like this is really where I thrive. This is where I feel the most alive. This is what it's about. That's fine. Some of you who might just need to weigh in your own expertise and acumen. Like for example, you've got the corporate background, so you might say like, well, I need to lean in what I know the most right now and then allow opportunities for growth to maybe explore with little small projects here and there to see if I want to expand that or more, right? For some of you, this might end up being just a question of finances and time. It's like, well, who's going to pay me? Who's going to allow me to make a living in the work that I can do? So that then maybe I'm able to do other projects that may not be as financially lucrative, but might still nurture my soul and my artistry. Um, it's there really is no easy way to think about like, well, who am I gonna invest in, right? So I'll just share this a little bit with you in terms of like, well, what did I decide for my space? How I answered that question for myself. Because I've been worn so many different hats and worked with so many different populations, and that ultimately I had to decide kind of, well, where do I kind of hope to hang my hat in this space? So what I've ultimately decided and what I've tried to do here in the past few years by starting this program is I've decided that I want to invest in creating more of us,
Oh.
creating more of me that looks totally different, right? And I don't say that as ego. Well, maybe just a little bit of ego, but so in other words, I want to invest in creating more teaching artists, exposing them to facilitation, exposing them to what is possible, giving them the opportunity, the different communities that they can work with, getting them as solid as they can pedagogically and artistically, and then allow them to naturally discover where the communities and where the things that they want to thrive, and then how can I support that. That comes from my own traditional training as an educator, as a teacher, right? Because the term applied theater was something that I was exposed to later in my years, right? And I didn't know what that was. That was much more of an academic term. And I was thinking to myself, well, I've been a teaching artist and an applied theater practitioner all my life. I just didn't really know that that was the term per se, right? So I would invite you to think about those questions, like what is going to sustain me in the long term financially, spiritually, and where do you see yourself in the space?
So that actually took me back to year 2008, where I was in a dilemma whether to do dramaturgy or applied theater. And I think I thought on the same same line, like, what exactly will going to feed me in future, right? But yes, as you have said, Emilio, the the mission, we are all in, you know, creating more facilitators like us, or creating more people who are thinking like us. So even if you're not actually doing any kind of groundwork, but if you're supporting, if you're thinking about the same platform, about the same process, I think that's also going to help a lot. Okay. So on this note, I think, well, of course, 90 minutes is not enough, but we we can think of a good start with you, and maybe we can create more uh, like this occasions to get you and talk about your practices in detail. So this is a brief, where our students got an idea about what exactly you do and which are the areas that you work in. But now you can probably go into detail of each and every area. So let us think of having a series of conversation in future where we can get you to talk about it, and we will get you for sure. So just be assured about it. But thank
I
you
would
very
love
much.
that. And thank you all. And again, because I could do a whole session just about that in the back. And I know that some of you are interested
Yes,
in that. And I'd
yes,
love to
this is
talk about
pending.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's very motivating, by the way. But thank you very much. And I thank all the participants, students who are here to, understand what is happening. And it's good to have this curiosity, because applied theater doesn't remain with you when you work with others, right? It always belongs to someone else, and those people will teach you. So it's good to know about, what kind of practices are happening, what is the approach that other people are following, what are the problems that people are dealing with, what are the practices which are happening across the world. So that will give you a more insight about applied theater and what exactly you should do or you want to do. Okay. So of course, foundation will keep creating more such opportunities, but your support, your participation is equally important. So on this note, I would like to thank you from bottom of my heart, Emilio, and we are meeting very soon, by the way, so we can have a more discussion on that. But yes, thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.
thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, Emilio.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
everybody.
Just the
Thank
beginning.
you,
Thank
Emilio.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Emilio. Thank you, Kaustubh.
Thank you. Thank you, Emilio.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.